Hey everybody, Matt Neufeld here with Explosive Edge Athletics, bringing you our second video in our Plyometrics series. It's called Creating Shock. We're going to start giving you some preliminary ideas on how to incorporate shock and plyometrics into your workout, a couple tips on some exercises, and an example of a safe progression from beginning to advanced exercises you can use, as well as some other tips to use while constructing your workout with plyometrics. If you missed the first video, it was called What are Plyometrics and Why Do We Need Them? We covered a little bit of the science and background behind what plyometrics are, and what benefits we can see from them, and how to use them. We talked about how plyometrics are exercises that make your stretch shortening cycle more effective and more efficient by teaching your body how to deal with elastic potential energy in your muscles and connective tissue. They also help you decrease your amortization period, or the time it takes to you to reverse your motion from absorbing eccentric load and turning it into concentric motion. By decreasing that amortization period, we can become more explosive, more athletic, and hopefully more successful in our particular realm of sport. Now, the first thing we'll talk about when we're discussing how to integrate plyometrics into our workout is our progression of shock, or how much shock we're going to be using in our exercises. Now, that magnitude of load is determined by two things. The first is the weight of your load, usually going to be our body weight, and the second is the height that you're either dropping or jumping or falling from in these plyo exercises. When we talk about increasing the amount of shock in our exercises, we're going to tend to increase the height more frequently than we will the weight. And the reason for that is, as we increase the height, for example, an altitude drop off of a box, when we increase that height, we're increasing the amount of eccentric load our body needs to absorb and deal with, but we're not increasing the resistance against our concentric movement, or the jump at the bottom, like we would if we were holding weights. And that allows us to give you more shock to deal with, but also allowing you to be quick and explosive out of the bottom of your movement by not adding extra weight that you're holding on to the whole time. Now, for an example progression of exercises from kind of beginner to advanced, we are often going to start with single response exercises, and that is a single repetition and a slight break between them. So instead of having a rapid multiple response where you crank off a bunch of repetitions right in a row. Also, we're going to tend to not have reactive exercises in the beginning, where we're just going to be dealing with absorbing our eccentric load and teaching our body how to deal with that extra shock safely. An example of a beginning exercise can even be a lunge. You might think, well, I didn't know lunges could be plyometric exercises, but they can. If you think about your height is just your height from your standing position down to your lunge, and your load is going to be a portion of your body weight because you're supporting a lot of it on that front leg, but not all of it. And as you drop into that lunge, focusing on contact time and absorbing that little bit of shock you're creating from that fall turns it into a great beginning plyometric exercise. To go from there, we could incorporate a drop, which would be a little bit more advanced because, again, we're increasing that drop height. We could stand up on a box like this one we have here, and dropping off of that, landing in a rebound-ready position, absorbing a little bit more load than we introduced with that lunge. From there, we can turn to more reactive exercises, where instead of just absorbing the eccentric load, we are now going to, as quickly and explosively as possible, turn that eccentric load into explosive concentric motion by using all that elastic potential energy we're gaining from the drop. So standing up on a box like we were with the drop, but instead of just catching, quickly exploding up into a jump, utilizing all that shock and elastic potential energy we're creating. From there, you can make it even more advanced by either increasing the height of your drop, or by turning it into a multiple response movement. Like we said, a bunch of rapid repetitions in a row. For example, you could be on a jump mat, and instead of just one explosive counter movement jump, make it a set of 5 plyometric jumps, where upon each landing, you're again rebounding and jumping explosively as quickly as possible. Those multiple response movements making it a little more intense, a little more taxing on the neuromuscular system, but extremely beneficial because of that. Now, knowing when to progress to more advanced exercises is equally as important as knowing which exercises to do. From a kind of qualitative analysis, knowing your athletes is really important because you can watch them, watch the speed of their movements, the control of their movements, and by analyzing how they're performing, just by eyeballing, determining if they are stable enough, moving explosively enough to move on to increased workloads or more advanced exercises. Also, if you do progressive testing throughout your routine, it's a great way to determine where your athletes are at, whether it's vertical jump testing or broad jumps or any battery of tests that you happen to do. Tracking their progress through these kind of exercises is a great way to determine if you need to be moving on to more advanced techniques. To touch on rest real quick between sets, knowing how much recovery time you need is just as important as any of the other things we've talked about. A good rule of thumb for a lot of these plyometric exercises is taking 1 to 2 minutes between sets. Although more importantly, you need to be judging how your body feels or judging how you think your athletes are looking and feeling. Now you could take 1 minute, say, between drop jumps, but if your legs aren't feeling fresh and ready to go, take a little more time, shake the legs out, get loose. The 1 to 2 minute is just kind of a preliminary benchmark. More importantly, you just need to know how you feel, use that as a starting point, and then experiment from there. See what works for you for rest periods. Hopefully these beginning tips are enough to get you started on a couple things. Tune in next week and we're going to start demoing some exercises, getting more specific on technique, really getting down to the meat and potatoes of what these plyometric exercises are and how to use them as effectively as possible. So until then, this is Matt Neufeld from Explosive Edge Athletics. We'll see you later.